people traveling 50 miles or more would exceed 55 million. And they also anticipated that like 49.3 million would be traveling by car. And I think they all chose the same route I did. 49.3 million people traveling by car. Now, I've spent a lot of time in a car full of kids. I had 3 daughters, and they're 8 years apart, so that I could prolong the suffering. So for 30-some years, I've been traveling with kids, and we know what it's like, when you're traveling any distance with kids. There's always that ultimate question you have to address. Are we there yet? When will we be there? How much longer? That's obviously the ultimate question of traveling children, but it's also the ultimate eternal question. Are we there yet? It's the ones that the disciples asked Jesus, and really it's his fault, because this is towards the end of the gospel, it's the end of his ministry, and they were in Jerusalem for the Passover, which we know will be his last Passover. And this was Holy Week, so he started out by cleansing the temple and confronting the religious establishment. And he talked about the destruction of the temple, how one stone will not be left on the other. So they had to ask, right? I mean, he set them up. They had to ask because this is Jesus. And Jesus knows everything. He knows where to go to catch all the fish. He knows the past of the Samaritan woman at the well. He knows the condition of the centurion's daughter. He knows exactly when Lazarus passes. He knows everything. So they have to ask, are we there yet? When is the time? And for all that Jesus knows, he doesn't know, or he chooses not to know. And we get into debates about kenosis, the emptying of God to become man. So either he didn't know or he chose not to know. He didn't know. He said the angels didn't know. God alone knows. And so he can't answer that ultimate question. But he did give them and us some signs to look for leading up to this. Now, first of all, he confirmed that Elijah must come. And in Matthew 17, the disciples come up and say, well, why did the scribes say that Elijah must come first? And he replied, I tell you, Elijah's already come. They didn't know him, and they did whatever they pleased to him. And then he points not only to the destruction of the temple, which he talked about earlier, but also he gives an interpreting sign through the desecration of the temple. And in this same chapter of Matthew 24, he says, so, when you see the desolating sacrilege that is spoken of by the prophet Daniel, that is standing in the holy place, and let the reader understand. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So it gives a sign of the desolating sacrilege that Daniel talked about, the abomination of desecration as it's talked about in Revelation. And there's really two specific events in history that tie into this. On the Jewish side, most rabbis feel that it refers to when Antiochus Epiphanes set up an altar to Zeus, or maybe Baal, in the second temple in Jerusalem, and he sacrificed a pig, he sacrificed swine on the temple around 168 BC. Now, this was the event that sparked the Maccabean revolt. And it was a desolating sacrilege set up in the Holy of Holies in the temple. But most modern scholars, Jewish and Christian alike, think that what Jesus was talking about, what he's referring to, was the desecration of the temple during the Jewish revolt. This was around AD 70, when the Roman leader Hadrian installed statues of Jupiter and of himself. Because you're going to put a statue, you got to get yourself in there. Put up a statue of Jupiter and himself there in the Holy of Holies. And this sparked the Jewish revolt. And Augustine of Hippo states that the Gospels very clearly bear witness that the prophecy of Daniel was fulfilled when Jerusalem was overthrown. Chrysostom understood this to refer to the armies that surrounded Jerusalem and the factions fighting within it. which preceded the destruction of the city and the destruction of the temple, and hopefully we know a little bit about that history. So Jesus didn't know when, but he knew some things to look for. One thing was that desecrating sacrilege. But his focus is not on the when, but kind of maybe the how. Because he says, well, I don't know when it comes, and if everybody knew when it came, that would be easier. But whenever it does come, don't be caught off guard. Because if the owner knew when the robbers were going to break in, it wouldn't happen. So whenever, don't be caught off guard. And he emphasizes that. He emphasizes his message with this reference to the time of Noah. And Noah's kind of the same thing. It was a time of impending judgment. And that entire time that Noah was building an ark, Noah was also preaching. And he was talking about the fact that God wasn't happy. And he was talking about the fact that God was going to send a flood in the desert. And he was talking about the fact that people needed to get ready. And yet they just went about their daily lives. They married, had kids, and they worked in the factories, and they went to Walmart. They did not heed the warnings. And it was a deprived generation, but we have to understand that all the activities weren't bad. He was just talking about people doing people stuff. People just living their lives and going about their business. It's not that they were all bad, they were just too caught up in life. They were just too focused on the here and now to think about the later. And then he gives these images of two groups working together, the workers in the field and working at the mill. And it's really been used as an interpretation of the rapture. But again, we put it in the context, and he's talking about that unexpectedness of his return. Guys will be out working, and it will happen. Ladies will be doing their activities, and it will happen. People will be going about their regular activities, and it will happen. Jesus said it's going to be the same. Everyone just going about their business, just living their life, and then it's going to happen. But he said, only those who are ready will participate. And see, that's the point. And it seems that in the times of Noah and the times of Jesus and today, it's a peculiar interpretation of the human condition. Jesus said the temple would be destroyed, and it's been destroyed. He said that his followers would face persecution, and that's happened, and it's still happening today. He said the gospel must be preached to all, and I think we've pretty well done that. Of course, there's always someone who hasn't heard the message. And I'm amazed at all the people who are looking for the temple to be rebuilt so that it can be destroyed again, so that the fulfillment will take place. I think they're misguided. I think they're like the disciples. Instead of concentrating on the task, they're trying to calculate the end times. And instead of worrying about how to live, they keep asking, are we there yet? I really wonder if Jesus ever threatened to just pull over. I'm going to stop this car right now. But that's the way we are. We want to know when. But the most important thing isn't when, it's how. And it's going to be unexpected. We're not there yet, but how much longer? The big question is, when it happens, will we be ready? I think there's two basic overviews or attitudes in travel. There are those that see traveling as a task, right? My goal is to get from point A to point B as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And if I can, I'm going to beat my previous time. It's a competition to me because I'm a man, right? But then there are those. They want to stop and see everything. Right? Every little roadside attraction, every little mom and pop store, every little restaurant. They get so caught up in the journey that they never consider the destination. I think Jesus is telling us not to get so distracted by the roadside attractions that we miss the fact that we're on a journey. Not to get so caught up in all the events of life to realize there is an ultimate destination. Because the point is, people haven't changed. We can get too caught up in the here and now that we give little or no thought about the future. Now that seems oxymoronic considering the fact that we think it's Christmas already. Trees and decorations have been up for months. Carol was already playing. I actually heard someone yell out, "Ho, ho, ho," when I was purchasing Halloween candy. This was before Halloween. And we heard ho, ho, ho in the distance. And I looked, well, they already had the tree up. So why not? You know? We can even decorate the church before Thanksgiving. Yeah. But think about this. If we have no trouble living as if Christmas is here way before Thanksgiving, why do we struggle to live every day as if it's our last? Now, I won't pretend, like so many others, to know when. But I do know that it's coming. And whenever it does, there will be selection. There will be judgment. There will be decision. And not everybody will be there. So it's not a message that enables one to make a checklist of events to see how far along our journey we are. But it is a message of promise. And it is a message of hope. And it is a message of purpose. Jesus is not wanting to give us a timeline or a checklist, other than the fact that the time is limited. And the checklist we should have is on our attitudes of devotion and commitment and dedication to God. Jesus is coming. I don't know when. But the question is, are we ready? You know, if we truly believed that today was the day, if we truly believed that Jesus was coming soon, would it change the focus of our life? If we truly believed, would it change our holiday celebration? If we truly believed, would it change anything about us at all? Or are we just going to continue to go through the motions of life? Let's turn to our hymn of invitation. 162, we'll do 1 and 3 of What Child Is This? And as we ponder that God, the coming of God and child, we need to contemplate His return in our life. We don't know when,